"This hunk of junk doesn't belong in this neighborhood," Officer Derek Monroe sneered as he slapped a parking ticket onto the windshield of the gleaming black Corvette. The crowd that had begun to gather murmured, their eyes darting between the cop and the young man stepping out of the car. Malik Johnson held his hands up, trying to stay calm despite the tension crackling in the air. "Officer, this is my car. I've done nothing wrong." His voice was steady but edged with frustration. Derek smirked, leaning closer. "Yours? A kid like you driving this? Where'd you get the money? Stealing it from someone who actually works for a living?" The comment stung, not just because it was baseless, but because it came loaded with assumptions about Malik's worth. He clenched his fists briefly before forcing himself to uncurl them. "Check the registration if you don't believe me. It's all legit." But Derek didn't budge. Instead, he turned to the growing audience, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "See, folks, these kids think they can flash cash and fancy cars without consequences. But we know better, don't we?" A few heads nodded hesitantly, while others exchanged uneasy glances. One woman whispered audibly, "He looks so young. Why are they treating him like this?" Another replied coldly, "If he didn't do anything wrong, why does he look guilty?" As Derek reached for his radio, ready to call for a tow truck, static crackled through the device, interrupting his plans before they could fully unfold. Malik stood frozen, his mind racing as the officer continued to mock him. Few people understood what the Corvette represented, not just luxury, but years of sacrifice. At 14, when most teens were focused on video games and hanging out, Malik had been tutoring underprivileged kids after school, charging modest fees to save every penny. By 16, he'd expanded his business online, offering virtual lessons to students across the country. His mother often reminded him how proud she was, though her pride was tinged with worry. "People won't always see your hard work, Malik," she'd said countless times. "They'll only see what they expect to see." Those words echoed now, as Derek dismissed his achievements without even hearing them. What made it worse was the irony of the moment. Just hours earlier, Malik had received congratulatory texts from friends about being featured in a local news segment, highlighting young entrepreneurs making waves in the community. The same car Derek mocked was meant to symbolize hope, a tangible reminder that success was possible despite the odds stacked against him. Yet here he stood, facing accusations rooted in prejudice rather than fact. Every dismissive word from Derek felt like another attempt to strip away his dignity. "Why do you hate me so much?" Malik finally asked, his tone cutting through the tension. "You don't even know me," Derek scoffed. "I don't need to know you. Your kind always thinks rules don't apply." The phrase, "your kind," hit like a punch to the gut. As angry whispers rippled through the crowd, Malik realized this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about every person judged by the color of their skin rather than the content of their character. And then, just as the situation seemed impossible to escape, the radio crackled again. The interruption did little to deter Derek, whose ego thrived on confrontation. Ignoring the radio momentarily, he leaned into Malik, his voice dripping with condescension. "Listen, kid, let me break it down for you. People around here work hard for what they have. They don't flaunt stolen goods or fake wealth." "It's not fake," Malik shot back, his patience wearing thin. "I earned this, every single dollar." "Oh, sure," Derek replied, sarcasm lacing his tone. "A 17-year-old entrepreneur, huh? What's next? You're going to tell me you're some kind of prodigy?" Before Malik could respond, a bystander shouted, "Why don't you check his papers instead of assuming?" Others chimed in, some defending Derek, others siding with Malik. The argument grew louder, phones raised to capture the spectacle. For Derek, the attention only fueled his resolve. "You want proof?" he barked, snatching the registration documents from Malik's trembling hands. Scanning them quickly, his expression shifted, but only slightly. "Even if this says it's yours, It doesn't explain how a teenager like you affords something like this. Malik swallowed hard, knowing no explanation would satisfy the officer. Does it matter? I followed the law. Isn't that enough? No, Derek snapped. Not when guys like you use shortcuts to get ahead. The accusation hung heavy in the air, each word designed to undermine Malik's credibility. Meanwhile, the crowd remained divided, their opinions swayed by preconceived notions rather than evidence. Some muttered sympathetically about Malik's plight. Others clung stubbornly to stereotypes perpetuated by years of systemic bias. As Derek prepared to call for backup, the radio crackled once more. This time, the dispatcher's casual update carried an undertone neither man could ignore. "Dispatch to Unit 17, the voice crackled over the radio. "We've received complaints about harassment near City Hall. Also, FYI, the mayor's son drives a black Corvette." The words landed like a thunderclap, silencing both men momentarily. Derek froze, his hand hovering mid-air above the radio. Malik's heartbeat quickened, though he tried to mask his reaction. Could this be the lifeline he needed, or another complication? Derek recovered first, brushing off the comment with forced nonchalance. "Coincidence," he muttered under his breath. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Malik seized the opportunity, his voice firm despite the uncertainty swirling inside him. "Funny how things work, huh? Maybe you should double-check before ruining someone's life over assumptions." Derek glared at him, torn between skepticism and unease. If the car belonged to the mayor's son, the fallout could destroy his career, yet walking away now would feel like admitting defeat. "You're not out of this yet, kid," Derek growled, his grip tightening on the registration papers. But the damage was done. The crowd buzzed with renewed energy, speculating about Malik's connection to the mayor. Phones clicked furiously, capturing every second of the unfolding drama. Little did either man realize, this revelation was only the beginning of a far larger battle, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about justice, power, and accountability. Back at the precinct, Derek stared at Malik's registration documents, his jaw tightening with each passing second. The paperwork was undeniable. Malik Johnson was indeed the legal owner of the black Corvette. Yet Derek couldn't or wouldn't accept it. "This doesn't prove anything," he muttered to Lieutenant Grace Holloway, who stood nearby with her arms crossed. "A kid like him, driving a car like that? It doesn't add up." Grace sighed, her tone measured but sharp. "Derek, you're skating on thin ice here. If this blows up, and trust me it will, you better have more than it doesn't add up to justify yourself." But Derek wasn't listening. His mind raced, searching for ways to discredit Malik without appearing overtly malicious. Maybe he bought it off someone shady. Or worse, maybe it's stolen property disguised as legit. Grace gave him a long look before turning away. "Just don't make things worse for us. We've got enough heat without you stirring the pot." Her words lingered in Derek's mind, though not because they carried wisdom. Instead, they fueled his determination to dig deeper, not out of fairness, but out of fear. Fear that if he backed down now, people would question his authority. People would see him as weak. And so Derek doubled down, drafting an internal report alleging suspicious activity linked to Malik's vehicle. He knew it was flimsy, but he also knew how the system worked. For men like him, suspicion often outweighed proof. Meanwhile, Malik replayed the confrontation in his head, frustration simmering beneath the surface. Why did Derek refuse to believe him? What more could he possibly do to prove himself? The injustice gnawed at him, growing sharper with every unanswered question. As the hours passed, whispers of what happened began spreading through the community, and soon those whispers turned into something far louder. The altercation outside the cafe hadn't gone unnoticed. By nightfall, snippets of the encounter had flooded social media, accompanied by hashtags like "Justice for Malik" and "Racial Profiling Exposed." Bystanders who'd filmed the incident shared their perspectives, painting a damning picture of Derek's behavior. "He didn't even give Malik a chance," one woman said in a video that racked up thousands of views. "He just assumed the worst because of how Malik looked." Others echoed similar sentiments, their comments amplifying the outrage. But not everyone agreed. Some argued that Derek was simply doing his job, questioning why a teenager needed such an expensive car in the first place. "Why does it matter how he got it?" another commenter fired back. "The fact is, it's his. End of story." Caught in the crossfire, Malik scrolled through the posts late into the night, his emotions swinging between gratitude and anger. On one hand, strangers were rallying behind him, calling for accountability. On the other, the same toxic stereotypes Derek spouted were being parroted online, reducing his achievements to mere luck or privilege. The next morning, reporters descended on Malik's neighborhood, eager to capture sound bites from anyone willing to talk. Neighbors offered conflicting accounts. Some praised Malik as a role model, while others shrugged indifferently, suggesting the attention was unwarranted. Through it all, Malik remained silent, unsure whether speaking out would help or harm his case. He wanted justice, but he also feared becoming a pawn in a larger game, one where systemic racism dictated the rules and winners were few. As tensions escalated both online and offline, Malik received a call from an unexpected source. Someone claiming to be a journalist promised answers, but at what cost? While Malik grappled with public scrutiny, Derek leaned into his reputation within the force. Known for his instincts, he prided himself on catching criminals others overlooked, or so he claimed. To his colleagues, Derek's methods were effective, even if controversial. "He's got a sixth sense for sniffing out trouble," one officer joked during lunch, unaware of the irony. Others chuckled, nodding along. Few questioned whether Derek's instincts were rooted in bias rather than skill. But Grace Holloway knew better. She'd seen firsthand how Derek manipulated situations to fit his narrative, targeting minorities under the guise of protecting the community. Still, confronting him meant risking her own standing, a price she wasn't ready to pay. "You can't keep playing fast and loose like this," she told him later, her voice low but firm. "People are watching, and if internal affairs gets wind of this—" "They won't," Derek interrupted, his confidence unshaken, "because there's nothing to find. I'm clean, Grace. Always have been." His bravado masked a deeper truth. Derek thrived in grey areas, exploiting loopholes designed to shield officers from accountability. For years, he'd operated with impunity, secure in the knowledge that the system protected its own. Yet cracks were beginning to form. Anonymous tips poured into internal affairs, alleging misconduct tied to Derek's past cases. Most were dismissed due to lack of evidence, but not all. One name kept resurfacing: Marcus Bellamy, a man wrongfully imprisoned after Derek fabricated evidence against him. Unbeknownst to Derek, these whispers were about to collide with Malik's story, creating a storm neither man could escape. As rumors swirled, Malik received another call, this time from Jamal, his best friend. What Jamal revealed would shatter whatever semblance of control Malik still clung to. The weight of public attention crushed Malik faster than he could have imagined. Reporters camped outside his house, microphones thrust toward him every time he stepped outside. Headlines screamed accusations: teen entrepreneur or fraud. Did Malik Johnson really earn that car? Each article twisted his achievements into doubt, focusing less on his hard work and more on unfounded speculation about how a black teenager could afford luxury. The narrative shifted subtly but deliberately. No longer was Malik the victim of racial profiling. Now he was a suspect in his own story. At home, Malik sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his phone as notifications flooded in. His mother, Evelyn, placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "This isn't fair. It's not just unfair," Malik replied bitterly. "It's like they don't even want to hear the truth. They've already decided who I am before I can say a word." Evelyn sighed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "That's the world we live in, Malik. People see what they expect to see, but you've got to stay strong. Don't let them take away everything you've worked for." Her words offered little comfort. How could he stay strong when the entire city seemed determined to tear him down? Even friends who once celebrated his success now hesitated to defend him publicly, afraid of being dragged into the controversy. Then came the texts from Jamal, cryptic and apologetic. "We need to talk," one read. "I messed up, Malik. Please, forgive me." Confused and hurt, Malik dialed Jamal's number, dread pooling in his stomach. Whatever Jamal had done, it couldn't be good. Not now, not when things were already spiraling out of control. "Malik, I swear, I didn't mean for this to happen," Jamal stammered over the phone, his voice trembling. "I thought he was legit." "What are you talking about?" Malik demanded, gripping the phone tightly. "Who is he? What did you do?" Jamal hesitated, then blurted, "A guy called me yesterday, said he was a journalist working on a piece about youth, entrepreneurship. He asked for your DMV records, just basic stuff, nothing serious. I figured it'd help your case, so I sent them." Malik's blood ran cold. "You what? Jamal, do you realize what that means? Now everyone knows my address, my license info, everything." "No, okay. I messed up." Jamal's voice cracked under the pressure. "He promised anonymity, saying it would only be used to verify your story. But then he posted screenshots online. Old photos of you in hoodies, captions calling, 'You suspicious?' It's everywhere." Malik sank onto his bed, the room spinning around him. This wasn't just betrayal, it was sabotage. Someone had weaponized his personal information, twisting harmless details into evidence against him. "How could you be so careless?" Malik snapped, anger masking his fear. "Do you even understand what this does to me, to my family?" "I'm sorry," Jamal whispered, defeated. "I'll fix it, I promise." But Malik knew there was no fixing this. The damage was done, as if... Sensing his despair, his phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. Attached was a link to yet another expose, this one alleging ties between Malik and local gangs. Before Malik could react, a new voice entered the chaos. One that would change everything. Malik Johnson. The voice on the other end of the line was calm but firm, cutting through Malik's haze of frustration. "My name is Maya Bennett. I'm an investigative journalist covering systemic racism within law enforcement." Malik hesitated, wary of trusting anyone after Jamal's betrayal. "What do you want?" "To help?" Maya replied simply. "I've seen the footage, read the headlines. This isn't just about you. It's about exposing the patterns of discrimination that led to all this. If you're willing, I can dig deeper, find out who's behind these leaks and why." For a moment, Malik considered hanging up. He'd trusted too many people already, only to be burned. But something in Maya's tone, her quiet determination, made him pause. "And what makes you think you can make a difference?" he asked. Finally, skepticism creeping into his voice. "Because I've been doing this for years," Maya answered without hesitation. "And because I know Derek Monroe. His name keeps popping up in cases involving minorities, fabricated evidence, unlawful stops, harassment. You're not the first person he's targeted, and unless someone stops him, you won't be the last." Malik swallowed hard, torn between hope and caution. "Even if you're right, how does that help me now? My life's falling apart. It starts with the truth," Maya said firmly. "Let me show you what I've uncovered so far, including something big, something that ties Derek to Marcus Bellamy, the deputy mayor." The mention of Marcus caught Malik off guard. "The deputy mayor? What does he have to do with any of this?" Maya hesitated briefly before replying. 5 years ago, Derek framed Marcus for a crime he didn't commit. He served time because of it, and now Marcus might be the key to taking Derek down, for good. As Malik absorbed her words, a flicker of resolve reignited within him. For the first time since the ordeal began, he felt the tiniest glimmer of hope. But hope, he knew, came with risks and sacrifices. "Okay," Malik said quietly. "Tell me everything." But as Maya began sharing her findings, neither realized how deeply entangled their fight would become, or how high the stakes would rise. Malik and Maya met in a quiet cafe, far from prying eyes, to strategize their next move. Armed with documents and recordings, they believed they had enough to bring Derek to justice, but the system had other plans. When Malik filed a formal complaint with Internal Affairs, he expected resistance, but not outright dismissal. The investigator assigned to his case barely glanced at the evidence before shaking her head. "I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson," she said curtly. "While we appreciate your efforts, this isn't sufficient to proceed." "Not sufficient," Malik repeated, incredulous. "What about the registration papers, the video footage, the witnesses?" "The video alone isn't conclusive," she replied dismissively, "and without corroborating testimony from credible sources." She trailed off, leaving the implication hanging heavy in the air. Malik clenched his fists beneath the table, his frustration boiling over. "So what you're saying is, no matter how much proof I have, it doesn't matter unless someone important backs me up?" She didn't answer directly, but her silence spoke volumes. Later, as Malik relayed the conversation to Maya, despair threatened to consume him. "They're protecting him," he muttered bitterly. "Just like always." Maya placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Not everyone's untouchable, Malik. Remember what I told you about Marcus Bellamy, if we can get him on our side." "But what if he won't help?" Malik interrupted, his voice tinged with doubt. "What if he even thinks I'm guilty?" Maya hesitated, then leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Then we'll make sure he sees the truth. Because if there's one thing Marcus hates more than anything, it's being framed. And Derek's past mistakes might just be the leverage we need." Though Malik nodded, uncertainty lingered in his eyes. As they left the cafe, neither realized how close they were to uncovering something far bigger and far more dangerous than they'd anticipated. That night, Maya worked tirelessly, sifting through old case files and connecting dots that others had ignored. Her breakthrough came unexpectedly, a grainy audio recording buried deep within an archived investigation. The voice was unmistakably Derek's. "It's done," he said smugly. "Bellamy's locked up tight. No jury's going to believe some kid over solid evidence." Maya froze, her heart pounding as she listened intently. The context became clear. Derek had planted fake evidence to convict Marcus years ago. Worse still, the recording implicated Lieutenant Grace Holloway, who'd helped cover it up to protect the precinct's reputation. "This is it," Maya whispered to herself, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "This is how we take them down." The next morning, she rushed to Malik's house, her excitement barely contained. "Listen to this," she urged, playing the recording for him. Malik's expression shifted from disbelief to anger as Derek's words sank in. "He ruined Marcus's life," Malik breathed, his fists tightening. "And now he's trying to ruin mine." Maya nodded grimly. "Which means Marcus has every reason to fight back. But convincing him won't be easy. He's spent years rebuilding after prison. He might not want to risk reopening old wounds." "Then we'll give him a reason," Malik said firmly, resolving hardening in his voice. "If Derek gets away with this, he'll keep doing it. To someone else someday. We owe it to them too." Together, they crafted a plan to confront Marcus, knowing it was a gamble. They needed him, not just as an ally, but as a symbol of accountability, someone powerful enough to challenge the status quo. As they prepared to meet Marcus, however, Maya dropped another bombshell. "There's more," she admitted reluctantly. Grace Holloway's involved. If we go after Derek, we're taking on the entire department. For a moment, Malik hesitated. The stakes had risen exponentially, but then he remembered the humiliation, the betrayal, the injustice, and knew there was no turning back. The meeting with Marcus Bellamy took place in a nondescript office downtown. Tension filled the room as Malik and Maya explained their case, laying out the evidence against Derek. Marcus listened silently, his face unreadable. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair, exhaling sharply. "You're asking me to relive my worst nightmare," he said finally, his voice low and measured. "We're asking you to stop it from happening again," Maya countered gently. "To someone else. To kids like Malik." Marcus studied Malik for a long moment, seeing echoes of his younger self in the teenager's determined gaze. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right, but I have conditions." "Anything," Malik said quickly, hope flickering in his chest. "You'll work with me to expose not just Derek, but the entire corruption ring he's part of," Marcus continued. "Grace Holloway included. This isn't just about revenge, it's about dismantling the system that lets people like them thrive." Malik exchanged a glance with Maya, both understanding the enormity of the task ahead. "We're in," Malik replied firmly. But as Marcus outlined their strategy, a chilling realization dawned. Derek wasn't acting alone. His actions were symptomatic of a much larger issue, one that reached far beyond a single officer or precinct. And as they prepared for the courtroom showdown, Malik couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest battles were yet to come. The trial unfolded under the harsh glare of media attention, with reporters cramming into every available seat. Derek sat stoically beside his lawyer, projecting an air of confidence despite the mounting pressure. Malik watched from the gallery, nerves threatening to overwhelm him. Beside him, Marcus remained calm, radiating quiet authority. "Stay focused," he murmured. "This is where we turn the tide." As Derek took the stand to defend himself, his arrogance shone through. "I've served this city for 20 years, he declared proudly. "My record speaks for itself. These accusations are baseless, a smear campaign fueled by misinformation." His bravado faltered when Maya rose to cross-examine him. With calculated precision, she led him through a series of questions designed to expose inconsistencies in his story. "Officer Monroe," she began smoothly, "you claim your actions are guided solely by protocol. Yet multiple witnesses describe racially charged remarks during your encounter with Malik Johnson. How do you explain that?" Derek shifted uncomfortably. "I may have misspoken, but my intentions were never malicious." "Misspoken?" Maya echoed, her tone sharp. "Or perhaps reflective of deeper biases?" Before Derek could respond, she activated the recording of his earlier confession regarding Marcus. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as Derek's smug voice filled the space. Panic flashed across his face as he stammered, That's taken out of context." "No, Officer Monroe," Maya shot back, her voice cutting like steel. "That's you admitting to framing an innocent man. And now, thanks to your unchecked prejudice, history is repeating itself." The judge called for order, but the damage was done. Derek's facade crumbled, leaving behind a man desperate to salvage what little credibility remained. Yet just as it seemed the tide had fully turned, the judge made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the room. Anonymous tips had surfaced, evidence linking Derek to numerous cases of racial profiling, all submitted by whistleblowers within the department. The revelation silenced the courtroom, underscoring the pervasive nature of the problem. For Malik, it was both vindication and validation, but also a sobering reminder of how deeply rooted systemic racism truly was. As the trial recessed, Malik stepped outside, overwhelmed by the whirlwind of emotions. But the fight wasn't over. Not until justice was served for everyone affected by Derek's actions. The weight of the evidence crushed Derek Munro in ways he hadn't anticipated. As the trial resumed, the cumulative pressure, Marcus Bellamy's testimony, the whistleblower leaks, and Maya Bennett's relentless cross-examination finally broke him. "I did it," Derek admitted, his voice trembling as he slumped forward. "At the witness stand, I framed Marcus, I targeted Malik, and yes, I've used racial profiling for years because that's what they taught me." His confession stunned the courtroom into silence. Reporters scrambled to capture every word, while spectators exchanged shocked glances. For Malik, hearing Derek's admission aloud was both cathartic and infuriating, a raw acknowledgement of the injustice he'd endured. But Derek wasn't done. His tone shifted from defensive to bitter. "You think this is just about me? Look around. The system rewards people like me for keeping them in line. If I'm guilty, then so are all of you who look the other way." His outburst drew murmurs of discomfort from the crowd, forcing them to confront their own complicity in perpetuating systemic racism. Even the judge seemed momentarily shaken, pausing before instructing the court to maintain decorum. For Malik, Derek's breakdown offered little satisfaction. It wasn't redemption, it was accountability. Still, seeing Derek stripped of his authority felt like a step toward justice, however small. Yet even as Derek faced consequences for his actions, another figure stepped forward to address her role in enabling his behavior. Someone whose resignation would send ripples through the department. Lieutenant Grace Holloway stood outside the courthouse, flanked by reporters eager for sound bites. Her face was pale but resolute as she addressed the cameras. "Today marks the end of my tenure with the police department," she began, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words. "I take full responsibility for enabling Officer Derek Munro's misconduct. By failing to act when red flags arose, I contributed to a culture of bias and impunity within our ranks." Her announcement sent shockwaves through the law enforcement community. Some praised her courage, others dismissed her move as self-serving damage control. But for those fighting against systemic racism, her resignation symbolized a rare moment of institutional accountability. Grace continued, her tone softening slightly. "Change begins with owning our mistakes. I plan to dedicate myself to reform, efforts moving forward, to ensure no one else suffers because of failures like mine." As the press conference concluded, Malik watched silently from afar, conflicted. Part of him wanted to believe Grace's remorse was genuine. Another part wondered if her actions were too little, too late. "She's trying," Maya said quietly, sensing his hesitation. "Whether it's enough remains to be seen, but at least she's acknowledging the problem publicly." Malik nodded slowly, though unease lingered. Justice couldn't be achieved through apologies alone. It required sustained effort and systemic overhaul. Yet Grace's decision marked a turning point, signaling that even those in power weren't immune to scrutiny. As news outlets dissected her statement, Malik received an unexpected visit, one that would redefine the meaning of his struggle. Later that evening, a sleek black car pulled up outside Malik's modest home. Out stepped Mayor Richard Bellamy, Marcus's father, dressed impeccably yet humbly. Malik opened the door, surprised to find the city's leader standing on his doorstep. "Mr. Johnson," the mayor greeted warmly, extending a hand. "May I come in?" Once inside, Bellamy wasted no time getting to the heart of his visit. "Malik, your story has inspired me deeply, not just as a politician, but as a father. Your resilience reminds me of my son's journey, and it's reminded me why I entered public service in the first place." Malik listened intently, unsure where this was headed. The mayor leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Years ago, I launched initiatives aimed at uplifting underserved youth. But recently, I realized something was missing, a personal connection, a real-world example of triumph over adversity. That's where you come in. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I want to establish a scholarship fund in your name, the Malik Johnson Scholarship for Resilience and Innovation. Its purpose will be to support young entrepreneurs, like yourself, ensuring opportunities for those who might otherwise be overlooked. Tears welled in Malik's eyes as he processed the magnitude of the gesture. This wasn't just recognition, it was validation. Validation of his hard work, his dreams, and his fight against injustice. But there's more, Bellamy added gently. This isn't just about honoring you. It's about creating a legacy that inspires others to rise above prejudice and doubt, to show the world that success isn't defined by stereotypes, but by determination. For Malik, the announcement brought a mix of pride and humility. He'd set out to prove himself, never imagining his journey would spark such widespread change. Still, questions lingered. How far could one person's victory go in dismantling centuries-old systems of oppression? And what role would Malik play in shaping the future? News of the Malik Johnson Scholarship Fund spread quickly, reigniting conversations about race, opportunity, and systemic barriers. Social media lit up with hashtags like Inspired by Malik and Unbreaking Barriers, amplifying the message of hope and resilience. At its core, the fund represented more than financial aid. It embodied a commitment to challenging societal norms and fostering inclusivity. Recipients wouldn't simply receive monetary support. They'd gain access to mentorship programs, networking opportunities, and platforms to amplify their voices. This isn't charity, Mayor Bellamy emphasized during the official launch event. It's an investment in the next generation of leaders, innovators, and change-makers. Standing beside him, Malik delivered a heartfelt speech that resonated deeply with attendees. When I bought that Corvette, it wasn't just a car. It was proof that I could achieve anything, no matter the odds. But I learned something along the way. True success isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by how you use your achievements to uplift others. Applause erupted as Malik stepped down from the podium, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. Yet amidst the celebration, he remained grounded, acutely aware of the challenges ahead. Systemic racism wouldn't vanish overnight. There would still be battles to fight, stories to tell, and lives to impact. But for now, Malik allowed himself a moment of triumph, a reminder that even in the darkest times, progress was possible. As the event concluded, Malik found himself reflecting on the journey thus far. From the humiliation of being mocked for his car to inspiring citywide reforms, he'd come farther than he ever imagined. But the road ahead stretched long, and Malik knew his work was far from finished. In the quiet aftermath of the scholarship fund launch, Malik sat alone in his room, scrolling through messages of gratitude from strangers touched by his story. Each note carried a piece of wisdom, a testament to the ripple effect of his courage. Yet beneath the surface, Malik wrestled with lingering doubts. Had he truly made a difference, or had he merely scratched the surface of a much larger issue? The faces of those who doubted him, reporters, neighbors, even Jamal, flashed in his mind. Reminders of the uphill battle against prejudice. You can't fix everything, Maya had told him earlier, but you've started something important. Change takes time. Her words echoed now, grounding him in reality. True justice wasn't a destination, it was a process, one that required patience, persistence, and collective effort. Malik thought about Derek's downfall, Grace's resignation, and Mayor Bellamy's tribute. Each moment underscored the complexity of dismantling systemic racism. It wasn't enough to punish individuals. The structures supporting their actions needed to be reimagined entirely. And so Malik resolved to keep fighting, not just for himself, but for everyone who came after him, for the kids still being judged by the color of their skin rather than the content of their character. For the dreamers told their aspirations were unrealistic. For the silent victims afraid to speak out. As dawn broke outside his window, Malik closed his laptop and smiled faintly. The fight wasn't over, but neither was his determination. Because sometimes the greatest victories lie not in reaching the finish line, but in refusing to stop running. Malik's journey highlights the enduring fight against systemic racism, a battle that requires voices from all corners. Have you ever faced discrimination like Malik? Share your story in the comments below. Together, we're stronger, and every voice counts in driving meaningful change. Let's keep this conversation going, for justice, for equity, for everyone. If you thought Malik's story was powerful, wait until you hear about Ms. Carter, a teacher who transformed her students' lives overnight through courage and creativity. Click here to watch our next video and discover how ordinary people can spark extraordinary change. Don't miss it. Your inspiration starts now. Stories like Malik's deserve attention because they shine a light on injustice while inspiring action. Like, share, and subscribe to ensure these narratives reach as many people as possible. By spreading awareness, you become part of the movement fighting for equality and accountability. Together, let's inspire change, one story at a time.